We'll begin with a very short kirtan, just to invite everyone back in. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Vishatari Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Madan Mohan ki jai, Shri Nrsimhadev ki jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanande. So thank you all very much for coming back. I hope you had nice prasad. I'm very, very fortunate to be in your association here. Really, I was thinking during Kirtan that this is what could be a better good fortune than to be in the association of such nice devotees as yourselves. So this is really a reward for me after 1 year's worth of service to come here. So thank you very much. We now begin our second part of the seminar. So far we've been speaking about what we can do to effectively communicate with Krishna. Now we will discuss what sort of response we can expect from Krishna. So Krishna is capable of responding in many different ways. For Gajendra, he shows up on the back of Garuda in a blaze of glory. For Prahlad Maharaj, he jumps out of a pillar. For Kardama Muni, he appears in his Vishnu form like he does for Dhruva Maharaj as well. So Krishna, in Narada Muni's case, in his previous life, he gives him darshan in the core of his heart. Right? So Krishna is capable of doing many things, quite extraordinary. I guess the question is, what can we expect in our circumstance? Because we may not be expecting such dramatic rescues from Krishna. And for this purpose, I really like the example of the demigods when they pray to Krishna for protection. Particularly in the case of when they go to the Lord for protection from Hiranyakashipu, who has been tormenting them. In many ways, the demigods' situation is quite similar to ours. They are trying to be devotees. They have some material desires also mixed in with them. And so, it's an example that's approachable in terms of if we see how Krishna responds to them, maybe we can expect something similar for us. Of course, again, the disclaimer has to be made that Krishna is entirely independent. He's swatantra. So he's totally capable of doing all kinds of things that we cannot even imagine. But if we want some sort of predictability, then here's the example of the demigods is, I think, a good one. So when the devas are being tormented by Hiranyakashipu, and they've been chased out of their kingdoms, and it says they're so scared that even if he just raises his eyebrows, then everyone goes scattering. So afraid they were of Hiranyakashipu. So they all head to Lord Brahma for help, and Brahma takes them to the shores of the Milk Ocean to speak to the Lord, to pray to him. And they offer their obeisances, and they make their prayers, and they make their request to the Lord in the process that we have described. And what happens next, I think, is very interesting, very telling. The first thing that happens is that they don't see Krishna. They can only hear Krishna. They can hear his voice. Brahma hears his voice. And then he relates what he's saying to the others. So I guess that's the first thing that we can expect, is we shouldn't expect anything too dramatic from Krishna. I know we all hope that when we're praying intensively, the clouds will part, there'll be a bolt of lightning, and the Lord will descend in a blaze of glory. And he can do that. He sure can. And devotees have some amazing stories. But we should not expect that, right? Prabhupada writes in the purport that hearing Krishna's voice is as good as seeing him directly. That darshan of Krishna's voice is actually more effective and approachable for a devotee, more powerful, because we see Krishna as we repeatedly we read in Srimad Bhagavatam that the best way to see Krishna is through our ears, not through our eyes. And so Krishna acts in our life. He speaks to us in many different capacities if we're open to listening. He speaks to us through the scriptures. He speaks to us through the spiritual master. He speaks to us through the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? He speaks to us through the devotees we are with. He speaks to us through Krishna Prasad. He speaks to us in many, many different ways. And often the challenge is not so much that he doesn't say anything, but that we are not able or willing to listen. And that is, I guess, our first challenge in terms of Krishna's response, is are we ready to hear? In fact, Krishna has been speaking to us for many lifetimes, right? He's been talking to us. And every time he calls, we hang up. I remember when I was a child, I was home alone and the phone rang. This was the days before cell phones. And so I ran to pick up the phone, and there was a person on the other line who said, hi, my name is Tex, and I'm your father's brother. Can I talk to him? And I thought, telemarketers coming up with new strategies, and click. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. He said, I'm Tex, and I'm your father's click. I put down the phone again. He called a third time. I mean, what was going through my mind is my father has one brother, and his name is not Tex, and he doesn't have an American accent. So this is clearly not who he is speaking of, right? So I kept putting down the phone. Finally, he called a third time, and he said, please just hold on just a minute. Let me explain. I am your father's fraternity brother from when he was a teenager going to college at Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas. I've been looking for him for now 30 years or something like that. These are before the days of social media and all of that. I think I finally found him. Can you confirm that this is the residence of Mr. Arun Gupta? And I felt so bad. This man had been looking for my father for years. And, fraternity brothers have a close relationship, like they're brothers. And he had been searching for him. And finally, through one contact after another, he found his brother's phone number, only to have his son hang up the phone on him, right? So this is essentially what we do with Krishna over and over again, right? He finds so many ways of contacting us. He gets us through a devotee distributing books on the street, and we hang up. He gets us through his prasad, and we hang up. He gets us through, prasadam we generally keep the line open. But, so that's as far as it goes. And then he reaches out to us through a devotee, and we hang up. He gets us through scriptures, and we hang up. Krishna is trying to reach us over and over and over again. But we have a tendency to hang up over many lifetimes. So that's our first challenge, right? What do we expect from Krishna? And Prabhupada says we should expect to hear him. That's number one. We should expect to hear. So the demigods, they hear Krishna, and Krishna tells them something very beautiful. The first thing he says to them, he says, Mad Jnatam etasya dauratmyam. He says, my dear devas, mad gnatam. I know etasya dauratmyam. I know Hiranyakashipu's misbehavior. I know. Now this is a big deal. This is the first thing Krishna says. And right then and there, it gives the devotee relief. Someone knows, Krishna knows. When we are going through very difficult times, when we're going through a challenge, the biggest difficulty is that we look for someone who understands, someone who gets it. We're going through something and we can feel like we're all alone. There's no one who understands what I'm going through. There's no one who cares what I'm going through. There's no one who gets it. And so the first thing Krishna tells the demigods is, Gnatam, I know, I understand. You know, when I get sick, we go to the doctor. Just by seeing the doctor, half my disease is gone already. Like, okay, someone knows, and he just told me I'm not going to die. So that's helpful, right? So some recognition that someone knows, someone understands, someone gets it. This is Krishna's mercy. This is Krishna's mercy. My favorite word for mercy in Sanskrit, there's many words for mercy, right? There's karuna, there's daya, there's kripa, right? Kripa, prasad, right? Anukampa, right? My favorite word is anukampa. Krishna uses it in the Chaturshloki Gita. Tesham evanukampartham aham ajnanajam tama. To those whom I show special mercy. This word anukampa is very beautiful because kamp means to tremble, and anu means with or after. So to tremble with someone is mercy. This is actually exactly the same word as in English, compassion. Passion means to suffer, and means, the prefix in Latin means with, to suffer with someone. Krishna says, Tesham evanu kampartam. I tremble with my devotee. And this word tremble is so nice, because we tremble in so many different circumstances. Right? When we're afraid, we tremble. When we are really happy, we tremble. Right? We call it buzzing. I'm buzzing with excitement, right? Can't sleep because I'm so excited. Right? We tremble when we're happy. When we're sad, we tremble. When we're crying buckets of tears, your whole body is trembling, right? Krishna says, I tremble with you. Means in everything, in all your experiences, fear, joy, pain, I'm there. I'm trembling with you. And even if, for some reason, we think, Krishna, what do you really know about what I'm going through? There you are in the spiritual world, playing your flute with your cowherd boys and gopis. Your life is perfect. What do you mean you're trembling with me? Krishna tries to explain in Bhagavad Gita. You know, when he describes the different types of austerities, then he says demoniac austerity is that kind of penance which gives pain to the material body and to the supersoul within. He says when you torment the body, he says it's also giving pain to me. That is demoniac austerity, he says. When you're performing austerity that is way beyond bounds, right? Krishna says, I'm suffering as a result of that. And even if we feel that Krishna, even then, Krishna doesn't really get me. He doesn't really suffer. then we can take solace in the fact that Krishna's devotees understand, that they understand. Krishna reaches out through his devotees. This is why the devotees of the Lord are so particularly merciful. The spiritual master, the devotees we work with, the previous acharyas, the reason they're so particularly merciful is because they too are jiva. They're living entities. They know what it means to be small, to be alone. They know what it means to suffer in a way that Krishna doesn't experience. This is why I particularly like the poem by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. This Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More Toma Bina Ke Dayalu Jagata Samsare. He's saying, my dear Lord Mahaprabhu, please be merciful to me. Besides you, there is no one who is so merciful in this world. But then he finds someone who is more merciful, even than him, right? He goes on to say, Ha ha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripavalokana Koro Ami Boro Dukhi. He says, actually, I know Lord Nityananda Prabhu understands. He's even more merciful. His name is Nityananda, and he's presenting his case. And he's saying, your name is Nityananda, and my name is Dukhi, right? I'm always sad. I'm always in trouble. Please, you help me, right? So Mahaprabhu is so merciful, but then he's saying, I think Nityananda Prabhu gets me even more, right? That mercy, as it comes down, it becomes more concentrated. It becomes more intensified. Why? Because it becomes closer to us. As it comes closer to us, we know those people get it better, even better than Krishna gets it. Then from Nityananda Prabhu, he goes to Advaitacharya. Then from Advaitacharya, he goes to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan and Swarup Damodar and others. And from there, he goes to his own senior godbrother. Daya karo Shri Acharya Prabhu Srinivasa Ramachandra Sangha Mage Narottama Dasa. He goes to his senior godbrother and then to his dear friend, Ramachandra Kaviraj. Because if anyone gets it, your friends in Krishna consciousness get it, right? They understand. Mercy comes down, and as it comes down, it thickens, it intensifies, it becomes more accessible because the person giving it is more accessible. Because the person giving it is closer to us and therefore understands what we're going through. Srila Prabhupada lived in this world a mere half-century ago. He knows what our world is like, right? Maybe 6 generations ago things were different, but 50 years ago, he knows, right? So, anukampa, trembling with. This is a very special thing in the shower of mercy that comes from the Lord. It comes from the Lord to his devotees, and through his devotees, through the parampara, all the way to those devotees who truly do understand what we're going through. And through them, Krishna understands. Why? Because he says, again, this is another song, Tomara hridoye sada Govinda Vishram. Govinda kohena mor Vaishnava pran. Narottam Das Thakur says again, he says that, O Vaishnav, in your heart Krishna is always there, and you are always, Krishna says, the devotee is my heart. So through the devotee, Krishna really knows, right? He gets it. So this is why Krishna is able to convincingly say, Mad jnatam etasya doratmyam. I understand. I understand what you're going through. That's the first thing he says. And what a nice first thing to say. Right? That's what everyone wants to hear first, is empathy. When someone is in difficulty or in suffering, the first thing they want is empathy. Before a solution, we want empathy. And that's what Krishna offers. Mat jnatam. I know. I understand. Then, the next thing he says, Tasya shantim karishyami. Then he makes a promise. I will take care of him, Hiranyakashipu. Tasya, of him, Hiranyakashipu. Tasya shantim karishyami. I will take care of him. I love the way he puts it. Tasya shantim karishyami. I will make him peaceful. And he does make him peaceful, right? Unfortunately, the only way he can figure out to make him peaceful is by, in the end, killing Hiranyakashipu, because he is such an unpeaceful person. But that's how Krishna puts it. He knows how to make every living entity peaceful. And he's telling the demigods, Tasya kshantim, I will make him peaceful. But also in the process, he will make the demigods peaceful also. Right? He makes his devotees peaceful. Tasya shantim karishyami. I will do it. This word karishyami, I will do it. Krishna is making a promise here. And he makes these promises over and over and over again. He assures us. What promises of Krishna can you think of in Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, his famous one is the last one, right? Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksha yishyami. Same tense, ishya, right? Tasya shantim karishyami, he says. Moksha yishyami. I will do it. I will liberate you from what you're going through, he says in 1866. Yeah, he says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvak dadami buddhi yogam tam. He says, I promise you, I will give you a way by which you can come to me. Tesham evanu kampartam, because I'm so merciful to you. He says, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati konteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Arjun, you declare it to the world that my devotee never perishes. He says, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityaya bhiyuktanam yoga kshema vahamyam. Again and again, he says in what chapter? 12th chapter. Bhavami nachirat partha. Very quickly, I deliver my devotee from the ocean of birth and death. Practically every chapter, Krishna is making these promises over and over. Mame vaishyasi yuktvaivam atmanam matparayana, he says in 9th chapter. And even in his other forms, he says the same thing. As Lord Ramachandra, he says, Sakrit eva prapanno yas tavasmiti cha yachate abhayam sarvada tasmai dadami etad vratam mama. For one who surrenders to me, who comes to me and says even once, my Lord, tavasmi, I am yours. Krishna says, Abhayam sarvada tasmai. I give them fearlessness every day of their life. So, Krishna loves making promises. He makes a lot of them. And we understand that Krishna doesn't always keep his promises. That also we understand. He broke his promise of not fighting in the Kurukshetra war by picking up the wheel of the chariot. Right? He acts as a thief in Vrindavan many times, stealing butter, stealing clothes, stealing hearts. Right? So Krishna is not the most straightforward But there's one promise he never breaks, and that's his promise to protect his devotees. For that promise, he is known as Achyuta, or one who is unfailing, infallible. In fact, the reason he broke his promise to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra, not to fight in the battle, was to protect his devotee Arjun. That was more important to him. It was a higher priority promise than the promise of not fighting. So that all sounds very good. But where's the rub? Where's the catch? Because it doesn't always feel like Krishna's right there to help. Even if we accept the fact that he understands, Krishna doesn't always at least make me peaceful right away. Right? So the last thing he tells the demigods is perhaps the most telling and the most difficult. First he says, Jnatam etasya doratmyam. I know the terrible things Hiranyakashipu is doing. Then he says, Tasya shantem karishyami. I promise I'll take care of him. And then the third thing he says is, Kalam tavat pratikshata. As long as I'm not ready to do that, until the point at which I'm ready to do that, please wait. Kalam tavat. That until that time, pratikshata. Wait. And that's the hardest thing. That's the most challenging thing. Is that Krishna always operates on his schedule. And there's two problems with that. One is that that schedule doesn't match our schedule. And the second thing is that he doesn't tell us what his schedule is either. Otherwise, we'd be willing to wait most of the time. But we don't know. We don't know what Krishna's schedule is. A lot of the times we don't know. The demigods didn't know. For them, every moment was stretching out. They were in so much trouble. It felt like a lifetime to them. But they had to wait. Krishna says, Kalam tavat pratikshata. We have to wait. And Krishna makes us wait. He makes us wait, and he makes us wait, and he makes us wait. Why? You know, I'm sure you've heard me say this before because I like it very much. But when I was a child, I used to wonder in reading the story of Prahlad Maharaj and looking at the pictures in Bhagavatam. You know, there's this one, Hiranyakashipu is trying to kill Prahlad in so many ways, tormenting him. And one of the ways he tries to kill him is by pushing him off the cliff, right? He has his henchmen push him off the cliff. And there's this very nice picture, at least it was in the Bhagavatam that I was reading many years ago. And there's this picture of Prahlad, of the henchmen at the top of the cliff, and Krishna at the bottom, and Prahlad somewhere in the middle, right? It's like falling down like this. And looking at it, I used to wonder, why is it that Krishna catches Prahlad at the bottom of the cliff? Can you imagine what Prahlad is going through on the way down? What it feels like? Maybe the children can play outside. Is it okay? There'll be more freedom there to run around. Thank you. What is Prahlad going through in his in that moment or in that time as he's heading down that cliff, right? Why doesn't Krishna catch him halfway down? Why doesn't he catch him right after they push him off? For that matter, why doesn't he just push off the other people and keep Prahlad on the top. Why this whole process of him going down? And the reason is because that journey from the top to the bottom, that's the journey of faith, right? As we are pushed off of life's cliffs, and we all are, sooner or later, right? As we're pushed off of life's cliffs, and we're on our way down, we're pushed off, and when we're pushed off, we think, I'm a devotee of Krishna, Krishna will protect me. Then halfway down, we start praying intensively, Krishna, please protect me. And as the ground gets closer, we think, Krishna, will you protect me? And when we're close to hitting the ground, we wonder, Krishna, are you even there? Do you exist? And finally, when Krishna catches us at the very last minute, the devotee becomes so grateful. The heart becomes so full of gratitude. And we think, Krishna, why did I even ever question you? Why did I ever ask whether you were there or not? You were always there. That process of questioning Krishna, of wondering whether Krishna is there, of demanding from Krishna, somewhere along the line, getting angry at Krishna. Why are you doing this? Why haven't you caught me yet? That is the journey of faith. That's how we build our faith. And every time we get pushed off, we have the experience of last time to rely upon. We think, last time Krishna caught me, right? That was a very big cliff. I'm sure he'll catch me this time too. Usually, Krishna's mercy, his protection, becomes apparent to us in hindsight. It's very difficult to see it in the moment. Sometimes we go through something really intense. 10 years later, we look back and we think, wow, that experience, as horrible as it was, it changed me. It made me who I am. It made me a better devotee. It made me a better person. But in the moment, it's really tough. Sometimes it takes 10, 15, even 20 years to be able to see an experience as mercy. Mercy is there from the beginning, but it manifests in our vision, sometimes only in hindsight. But as we go through this life in that way, each time we surrender to Krishna, each time we ask him, each time we question him, that distance between the experience and the realization of mercy grows shorter. First time it took me 10 years. Then maybe it'll take me 5. The next time, maybe in a year's time, I'll be able to see Krishna's mercy, Krishna's hand of mercy, his protection. Then maybe it'll only take a few days. Then maybe one day, like Prahlad Maharaj, we will be able to see it in the moment. If you look at Prahlad Maharaj, he never actually asked Krishna for protection in the whole story. It's incredible. So many devotees do. Gajendra does, and so many devotees in Bhagavatam do. But Prahlad Maharaj never actually asked Krishna for protection. He's so confident that the Lord will protect me. This rakshishyati iti vishvasaha, right? The confidence that Krishna is there. One day, we too will come to that point of being able to recognize in the moment, as we're going through it, that this is Krishna's mercy, and feel that gratitude for the Lord's protection. But that'll take some time. It'll take some practice. It'll take some journeys down that cliff for us to recognize, to realize that. I want to share one example with you. A devotee whom I admire very, very much, a senior devotee, who spent his entire life preaching Krishna consciousness and serving the devotees, really wonderful devotee. He, some years ago, he was diagnosed with cancer. And he was telling me sometime after that, he said that the day he went to the doctor and was given that diagnosis was the day he felt so alone, so alone. And he said that he remembers particularly after the diagnosis, he needed to get some tests done. He was in a hospital. And you know hospitals, they're very sterile places. They're not very cheerful and can be very lonely places also. And he remembers walking from the doctor's clinic to the testing place through one of these underground tunnels connecting two buildings. White walls, white floor, white ceiling, tube lights, and this long passageway. And he said, I just felt like I'd been completely abandoned by Krishna. I thought, my whole life I've served you, and this is what you give me? This is how you repay me for my service? This is how you thank me for all the seva I've done? And he was saying, I was feeling all these emotions towards Krishna. And some time passed, and he went through treatment and so on. The cancer went into remission, and he was lucky to survive and to flourish. And one day he went back to his doctor, for like a follow-up visit sometime later. And the doctor said, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but your cancer was at a point where if you had not noticed it, if we had not noticed it for another week or two, because he had come in for a regular checkup, right? It was not there for cancer, it was just a regular. Had we not suspected it, and it had been a week or two late, you would be dead today. It would be gone. Someone up there is looking out for you. And he said at that moment, he just, like a dam broke, and he just cried, and he thought, Krishna, how did I ever question you? Why did I question you? You were there all along. And that anger towards Krishna turned into gratitude. That transformation of whatever it is we're feeling, fear, anger, frustration, depression, our goal is to transform that into gratitude. That's when we know we have accessed mercy. You see, it's very easy, not easy, but it is a rewarding process to be grateful for the good things in life. That benefits us, and we're all told to practice that, to count your blessings every day. The sign of a really advanced devotee is one who is able to be grateful even for the difficult things in life. And that gratitude takes time. It takes effort. It takes patience more than anything else. Queen Kunti in her prayers, she prays to Krishna, give me those troubles again and again. It's not because she enjoys suffering. Right? No one enjoys suffering. It's not that we have to be masochists. No, it's because she's at this point in her life. She's able to look back, and she does in her prayers. She tells Krishna, hey, we went through the house on fire, the house of lack. We went through that horrible gambling arena match. We went through this terrible battle. We went through one humiliation after another. We went through Durvasa Muni's wrath in the forest. We went through so much. What's interesting is she doesn't ask Krishna, why did you do this? But she's now at the point of telling Krishna, thank you for being there for me during all of that. You see, Krishna never promises that his devotee is going to have an easy life. To the contrary, Krishna actually demonstrates quite the contrary, right? He tells us, Dukhalayam ashashvatam. This is not because of me. This is because of the place you're in. This is the nature of this material world. He never promises a happy road, but what he does promise, and he demonstrates, that he will help the devotee navigate the troubles of this world with dignity and his protection. And as Queen Kunti, now in hindsight, is looking back at all those occasions in her life was so difficult. From the start. She was an unmarried mother. Then she was married and lost her husband, became a widow. Then her sons were repeatedly attempted to be killed. Then her daughter-in-law was humiliated. Then she lost them for 13 years in exile. Like, it goes on, her life story. It's incredible. And in hindsight, when she's looking at what happened, all she can experience in her heart is gratitude. Why? Because throughout all of that, Krishna, one thing that was certain, that was steady, was that you were there for me. And that's what I'm asking for again. When she says, Vipada santuta shashvat tatra tatra jagadguru. She's saying, bring those sufferings again, but it's not the suffering she's excited about. It's bhavato darshanam yatsyat apunar bhava darshanam. When I get to see you, that's what I'm excited about. You know, there's that very beautiful poem in a Christian song called Footprints in the Sand. Have you heard this before? It's a song that's where the devotee is speaking to God and saying, my dear Lord, all throughout my life, you have been right there, walking next to me in the journey of life. And when I look back at my life, I always see two sets of footprints in the sand, yours and mine. And yet, in the most difficult times of my life, I only see one. Why? Why did you abandon me? And then God speaks, and he says, my dear child, though that one set of footprints that you saw, those are not yours, those are mine. Right? Krishna was carrying him, the Lord was carrying him through those most difficult circumstances. But it takes us some time to recognize. Not only does Krishna take his time in responding, not only does he decide when he wants to respond, but he also decides how he wants to respond. I want to tell you one other story that is a little different than this one I just told you. My parents and my family had the good fortune of serving one wonderful disciple of Srila Prabhupada named Mother Kunti. And she developed bone cancer. This is many years ago when I was a child. She developed bone cancer. She was originally from Boise, from Idaho. So she came back there when she developed cancer, and her mother was there, and her daughter also visited and was there. So it was a nice place for her. But we had, in between in her journey, for a little bit, we had some time to take care of her. And it was the most incredible experience for me watching her. Bone cancer is amongst the most painful kinds of cancer you can get. Very, very, it was, and in her case especially, it was a long journey. It's a long journey. And as her body was wasting away, what was incredible is that her heart was becoming more and more Krishna conscious, more and more joyful, and more full of gratitude. Just around that time, the Vedabase had come out. Not the one online we have, but it was like a floppy disk Vedabase. Yeah, folio. Thank you. And we had, the computers were big at the time. So it was this big computer and a big screen. And she got this for herself. And we put it on this table, on this rolling table next to her bed. She had a hospital bed in our home. And all day she would read these stories. And anytime, Bhagavatam, and anytime we would come in, she would come, Ravi, come, and sit down next to me. And she would read. And she would read, and within minutes, tears would start to come, right? And she'd be like, Krishna's so amazing. Krishna's so wonderful. Krishna's so sweet. Her favorite story was the story of the Avanti Brahman. Perhaps you've read the story. What is it, 11th canto? 12th? 11th. Yeah, Avanti Brahman story. Somehow she felt a great connection to that story. And she would read, and she would cry, and she would discuss and talk. And her life was, the more she wasted away, the more it became full of gratitude, and the more it became full of joy. In the end, then, she traveled to New Vrindavan. This was the temple where she had served for many years, decades, in fact. She had traveled around the country distributing books and selling things in order to raise money for the New Vrindavan community. So she went there, and in the presence of His Holiness Radhanath Swami, and holding on to her deities in her hands, surrounded by devotees and Giriraj, she left her body. In this case, Krishna's protection was not like the first story I told you. The cancer did not go into remission. She did not have more time to live. From an outside perspective, we might ask, why did Krishna not protect her? But for someone who was there and was watching her and understood her heart, Krishna's protection was entirely apparent. Sometimes Krishna's protection manifests by protecting the body. Sometimes it manifests by protecting the mind and the heart and the soul. Something similar was the case with His Holiness Kadambaganan Maharaj. When I met him in Sadhu Sangha in Salt Lake City, that was just before he announced publicly. And so I had a few minutes with him on the sidelines of the kirtan. And he said, I haven't announced it and I don't want to yet because I don't want to bring down the mood of the festival. But I've got cancer and it's not going to go away. He said it spread everywhere. And he was, like my reaction in that circumstance, like all of us, I think, it was like, oh my gosh. And immediately you feel distress and you feel some pity, right? Oh no. And then I saw his reaction. And he was like, no, I'm happy. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go to my reward. I've done what I wanted to in serving Krishna. I have a plan. I'm ready to rejoin him wherever he wants me to go. And he was so joyful about it that I couldn't feel pity even if I wanted to. I couldn't give my condolences even if I wanted to. It just didn't feel right because he was totally content in feeling held in Krishna's hands. Some years before that, actually many years before that, perhaps some of you remember Sridhar Swami, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He was called the Jolly Swami. Very, very, so jovial, such a wonderful person. And I remember I was in Croatia at their summer camp, and he was there. And he had, I forget what the disease was, but it was progressive. It was getting worse. And at the summer camp, again, I got a few minutes with him. And I asked him how he was doing and how it was developing. And he said one of the symptoms, one of the effects of the disease he had is that it causes, I think it was, he said, ammonia gas buildup in the brain. Liver failure, okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, liver failure. And it was progressive. And he said that there was this ammonia gas that was building in his brain, and that causes brain fog. And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, I can no longer think clearly because of this brain fog. And because of that, Krishna is forcing me to think with my heart, to understand things from my heart. And isn't that what we want to eventually do in devotional service? That we can reason our way through life. But in the end, when we're at the point of death, our brain is not going to work. We're not going to be like, okay, I think I have this much time. No, we're going to have to work on autopilot. When the plane's going down, it's all those years of training that help. And he said, Krishna's giving me a chance to practice. My plane's going down, and I need to be able to feel what I'm doing and feel Krishna's presence here. Right? Someone might say, why didn't Krishna protect him? But only the one on the inside, only the devotee knows if Krishna's protecting or not. To the world, it may seem that the devotee is abandoned. I'll give you one more example, one last one. This is the example of Mother Isha, who's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. It was told by His Holiness Niranjana Maharaj. And Mother Isha had she's 35 years, Niranjana Maharaj writes, that she knew him, he knew her as this dedicated devotee who was totally fixed on hearing and chanting. Like that was her meditation. Very active, a really wonderful devotee. And then they lost touch for some time. And as she grew older, they found out that she had suffered a major stroke and was in a care home. And so the devotees would go and visit her there regularly. And the stroke was so massive. She was 95 years old. The stroke was so massive that she had lost all her memory. When Maharaj went to visit her, she couldn't at least show any signs of recognizing him or their relationship in the past or their service together. They tried to jog memories, but had been lost. And it says that when Maharaj and the devotees were leaving, one of the workers at the care home saw them and said, "You're here to see Edith, right?" That was her legal name. And they said, "Yes, how did you know?" She said, "Because what's incredible is that every Friday we have a gathering in the old age home, like a social gathering. Everyone comes and does activities and so on. And the only thing that gives her happiness is that she will lead everyone in chanting this Hare Krishna chant that you do." And the next time when the devotees visited her, she couldn't remember her history, her past, who she was. And yet they would chant with her, and it's the only thing that would come out of her mouth. Hare Krishna, Hare. You can actually see videos of her on YouTube. It's the most amazing thing. Any conversation couldn't happen. And yet the only thing that would come out of her mouth is the Mahamantra. Can you imagine someone who had gone through an experience that had destroyed her memory to the point that she practically did not know who she was and who her relatives were and what her past was. It had destroyed her memory to that point. And yet, the only thing she could not forget was the Mahamantra. The only thing she held dear. And Maharaj writes that from this we understand that Krishna's relationship is not with the body, it's not with the mind, it's not with the intelligence, it's with the spirit soul. Because everything else was gone. Everything else was gone. Did Krishna protect her? Most certainly. He never abandoned her. Even in her darkest moment. In fact, when the whole world abandoned her. When she was forced to abandon the world, let's put it that way, because of her condition. When she was forced to abandon the world, Krishna never abandoned her. He was the only one who was still there. And another elderly person in that care home told the devotees that she has this great sense of joy in her that we don't know where it comes from. Krishna's there. So Krishna's protection is always there. The only challenge that we have to live with is when he will protect and how he will protect. These two things about Krishna's response are unpredictable. And Krishna demonstrates his independence by doing them the way he pleases. Sometimes he will let us know his plan, but most of the time he will not. And it's up to us to see his mercy, his compassion, his anukampa, his protection with us in our life. And each time we experience something and we recognize Krishna's protection, the next time it becomes a little bit easier. And the time after, it becomes a little bit easier. And eventually, we are able to live in Krishna's hands. There's no push down the cliff, because all the way we feel Krishna's protection. He's right there, like when Prabhupada was on the Jaladuta. Did he experience pain and suffering? Yes. He writes in his diary, actually, the 2 days he had the heart attack, he doesn't write anything. There's this big dark line that crosses through those days. And then on the third day, he writes that the last 2 days were very difficult. If it is to come a third time, I will not survive. He writes, I am so much missing my Vrindavan Dham, my Lord Shri Shri Govinda and Gopinath. The only thing that is giving me solace today is my study of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Did he feel pain? Yes, that's the nature of the material world. No one escapes it. But Krishna was right there. He says after that third day, he said, tonight an amazing thing happened. And he describes the dream that he had of Krishna as the captain of the ship, telling him, you're right here. I have you in my arms. Right? I'm the captain of your ship. He saw all the incarnations of the Lord. We're all here with you. Lord Nrsingadev is here. Vamandev is here. Everyone is here to protect you, to take care of you. In our life also, as we have these experiences, we should treasure them. We should hold on to them. We should add them to our library of Krishna's pastimes in our life. Srimad Bhagavatam, what is it? It's an account of how Krishna performed his miraculous pastimes in the lives of his devotees from thousands of years ago. But Krishna's pastimes have not ended. He acts like this in the lives of every devotee, including in our own life. And so when we experience something of Krishna's protection, let us write it in our minds. Let us etch it in our hearts and add it to our library, our personal Bhagavatam, my Bhagavatam, the way in which Krishna has acted in my life. And as we go through life, that library will become many volumes. And our relationship with Krishna will grow deeper and deeper. Every time we look at him, we have his darshan. We will be able to say, Krishna, I know you. You and I, we've been through a lot together. And I know how you act. I know how you act in my life. So this time, I'm not worried. Or I'm a little less worried this time. Because I know what you're like. When times get tough, it's valuable for us to go back and read through our own personal Bhagavatam. To remember, yes, that time, Krishna helped me. And this is what I learned. And this is how I experienced. And that story from our personal Bhagavatam will help us, give us strength in this moment. That's exactly what Queen Kunti is doing, right? She's written her own Bhagavatam. Actually, her Bhagavatam is now our Bhagavatam. But as she's praying to Krishna, she's remembering, Krishna, this happened, then this happened, then this happened. And as she's remembering, she's getting strength for what is about to happen, which is the worst of it all. What's about to happen? Krishna is going to leave. And that's the one thing she was not prepared for. Because so far, in everything, it was terrible, very terrible. But Krishna was there. And now, the very reason she got through all of that, now that person is going. Krishna's going. And so she's using her personal Bhagavatam to gain strength in this new experience that she's getting by reading that Bhagavatam, by remembering what is it that Krishna, how did he act, how did he protect me? She's getting strength now. For what is perhaps the most difficult thing in a devotee's life is the feeling of Krishna's absence. When Krishna is present to a devotee and giving his gifts of mercy wholeheartedly, that is moments of great joy in a devotee's life. When there is a lot of trouble in life, but Krishna is there giving us protection, that is difficult for a devotee, but still manageable, because Krishna is there. But the most intolerable thing for a devotee is when Krishna seems to be not there. Like, I'm going through all of this, but where are you? That's perhaps the darkest abyss in our practice of bhakti. It's our greatest struggle. And Krishna, it takes some time for us to see Krishna's presence in those moments. But that darkest abyss of absence is a devotee's greatest opportunity to feel Krishna's presence. This is the ultimate teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That service in separation from the Lord is the highest form of service that we can find. Even when that separation feels like abandonment. Isn't this what the Brajavasis had to go through? Isn't this why the Vrajavasis are considered the greatest devotees of the Lord? If you read the prayers, the songs of separation from the gopis, this is what they are going through, right? They start off, this is in Rupa Goswami's Padyavali, very beautiful. They start off by unbearably saying goodbye to Krishna. Srimati Radharani, the gopis, they say, we refuse to look at Krishna as he's leaving. We will not say goodbye to him. Right? They cannot. It's too much for them. But Krishna promises. He says, I'm going in the morning, I'll be back by evening. This is what he tells them. So they spend the day. And Rupa Goswami, he writes, Yata Yama, 3 hours have gone. Another 3 hours have gone. The whole day is gone. Krishna's not coming back today. That's the first stage of their grief. Then, the next stage is they realize Krishna's not coming back today. He's also not coming back tomorrow, or the week after, or even next year. Krishna's not coming back. And at that point, as Rupa Goswami is describing, he's describing the development of their separation. When they realize he's not coming back, you know what verse Rupa Goswami gives there in his Padyavali? It's one we all know. Yugayatam nimeshena chakshusha pravrishayatam shunyayatam jagat sarvam govinda virahe name. At that point, when they realize that Krishna is gone, like gone, at that point they say, Shunyayatam Jagat Sarvam. Our whole world is now zero. Govinda Virahename, in separation from you. What happens then? Rupa Goswami says, then they make a valiant effort to forget Krishna. They think, if Krishna is going to act like this, and he's going to be such a terrible person, he doesn't deserve our love. Why are we not moving on? He's clearly moved on, right? He's got a wife or many wives, right? He's got a kingdom. He's got the love of his parents, Devaki and Vasudev. He's living a good life, and here we are miserable, right? Let's forget Krishna. And then they sing these songs of attempted forgetfulness. Right? We will not. Don't speak of him anymore, my dear friend. But that fails. It fails miserably. And even as they're trying to forget Krishna, they're remembering all the terrible things he did to them. Right? And in this way, that remembrance is increasing their love again. Because even as the devotee remembers Krishna in anger, in upset, in irritation, in frustration, the love of the devotee grows. This is the extraordinary quality of bhakti. That no matter how the devotee approaches Krishna, sometimes in life out of great joy, other times out of distress, other times in anger and upset. But we understand from Srimad Bhagavatam that no matter how we approach Krishna, the result is the same. It's still an intensification of our relationship with him. And so even as the gopis try to convince themselves to forget Krishna by telling them, reminding themselves how terrible Krishna is, they can only end up glorifying him and loving him even more. So that finally they come to the conclusion that Krishna no matter what you do, we're yours. We have no other choice. And it is at this point, the very last verse in this section of the Padyabali, the final point of the gopis' development of their separation, love and separation, that Rupa Goswami provides this verse to express their Srimati Radharani's feeling. And that is, Ashlishyava padaratam pinashtumam adarshanan marmahatam karotu va yatha tatha va vidadhatu lampato mat prananathastu saevana paraha. Krishna, do whatever you like to me. Embrace me or crush me. I'm yours. You are my master. You are the Lord of my life and no one else. Here, this is not a wish that they are expressing. They're expressing a reality. They're expressing where they are at in their Krishna consciousness, which is, of course, the highest point, right? They're just saying, we've tried it all. We've tried forgetting you. We've tried remembering you. We've tried waiting for you. We've tried chastising you. We've tried, going to visit you in Kurukshetra. We've tried it all. Nothing's working. So we're yours. There's no real choice here. This is our condition. And Srila Prabhupada, he explains in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says very beautifully, he says, separation from the Lord is the greatest form of suffering and the highest form of joy for the devotee. It is something that we cannot describe theoretically. It can only be experienced. Separation from Krishna is the greatest form of suffering, is the most intense suffering, and the greatest form of joy. Only when we have experienced that abyss of Krishna's absence and the desire to reach out to him can we experience what this means. That love in separation. So we find that the devotee's greatest miseries are in those moments when Kunti is seeing Krishna go, when Arjun comes back with news of Krishna's departure. Right? Those are moments where the devotee has no choice but to take shelter of their personal Bhagavatam. In Arjun's case, the only thing that gives him solace is remembering Krishna's instructions from Bhagavad Gita that he heard on the battlefield, and the pastimes that he performed with Arjun. And you see in that description in Bhagavatam, you see Arjun going through these waves of feeling that intense pain and then feeling the greatest joy. This point that Prabhupada is making. As he remembers all the ways, we used to sit on the same chariot together, on the same bed together, we used to joke together. Krishna would sometimes insist on driving my chariot out of affection. Krishna and Arjun would never go on separate chariots, even before the war, Anytime they had to go, each Pandava would go on his chariot, Krishna would sit with Arjun. So he's remembering all these things, and you can see his joy come up. And then you can see his devastation that Krishna is gone. And then you can see his joy again and devastation again. When Krishna leaves the rasa dance, same thing happens to the gopis. You see their torment, Krishna is gone. What gives them happiness? What's the only thing that gives them solace? Is their own personal Bhagavatam. They remember Krishna did this and Krishna did that. And one acts as Putana, and the other acts as baby Krishna, and another acts as Bakasura, and another acts as Krishna, and they reenact all of Krishna's pastimes. In that moment, experiencing the greatest suffering and the greatest joy all at the same time. This is why it's described, Gopi bhava rasamritabdi lahari kallola magno muhur. This is why it is called magno, drowning, kallola, in these ups and downs of love of God, right? Gopi bhava rasamritabdi. It's an ocean, samritabdi, lahari, but there's waves in that ocean. It's not just that you keep your head above water or you drown. There's this waves, and the waves pull you up and then they pull you down, pull you up and pull you down. That is the nature of any relationship, but nowhere more than in this relationship of love and separation. And this is specifically Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's gift for us. It's a long ways away. Yes, it feels so distant, because it is. But we have to realize that our whole life and our experiences in this life are all practice for that. We may not see it like that in this moment, but this is what we are preparing for. Every time we go through that challenge, and Krishna says, Kalam tavat pratikshata, you need to wait, and we feel his absence, that's a moment to practice this service and separation. Because we only have two choices, right? We can either wallow in our suffering and forget Krishna. We can make our suffering so big that we forget Krishna. Or we can remember Krishna and experience that suffering as his love, as his mercy, as his care. And the devotee chooses the second. It is not that the devotee does not experience suffering in this world. No. It is that the devotee chooses to change the narrative. It's a narrative of going from I am a victim to this is Krishna's mercy. It's a change from Krishna is abandoned me to Krishna is holding me in his hands. When we change the narrative of our own suffering, we can be victorious, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. And this is what we hear from Sanjay at the end, right? Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruvanitir Matir Mama. That when we change the narrative, then even in the midst of the most greatest difficulty and suffering, we can experience victory. We can experience joy. We can experience Krishna's protection. And that is what he promises. That's the meaning of his promise. Nothing else. He doesn't promise anything else to his devotees. But that he promises. That if we're willing to see his presence, then Krishna will be right there for us. Thank you very much for your attention. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for listening attentively. This was meant to be a 2-hour session. I don't know how long we have left. Anyone know? What time did we start? Oh, I don't think it was 11. I think it was 11, right? Okay. So we have about 25 minutes or so for Q&A. If people need to go, I know we started late, so we're a little over time. It's okay if you need to go, but if you have questions, I'm happy to take them now. Yes, Srilas Pandit Prabhu.
So, thank you very much for bringing this beautiful word anukampa, and it comes also in the Tattenukampam verse, if you want to.
Yes, yes.
So I'm trembling, but unless you tremble with me, I have to wait till that point of time if you want to elaborate.
Yes, yes. There also, thank you. We quoted that verse earlier, right? Tattenukampam susamikshamana, bhunjana. So the word there uses bhunjana. So bhunjana, in Hindi we will say bhugatna, right? That would be the translation. It's you're experiencing this. In Sanskrit it can even mean enjoying. Bhuj comes from bhog, also connected to that. But in this particular context, it's talking about our past karmas. So no one truly complains about good past karma. So we can understand the mood here is that I'm experiencing all this, bhunjana, right? Bhugatreya. I'm experiencing all of this suffering. But tattenukampam susamikshamana. So that trembling, right? This anukampa is referring to the devotee or to Krishna in that verse. Do you know? Krishna, right? Tattenukampa. Yeah. Oh, the te, right, to you. Right? So your mercy, right? He's referring. So it's interesting because he's speaking about both together. There's the personal trembling, that's bhunjana, right? And he says, in fact, he says, bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam, right? I become cooked in this bhunjana, right? So bhuj means to bhoga, which also is related to the act of eating, right? And so he's saying, even I've become cooked as a result of this. Itna bhuga chuke ki pak gaye. Fried. That's what he's saying. I'm fried. Yeah, I'm fried. There's the word. Right? I'm totally fried because of everything I've experienced. But he's pointing out that they anukampa. But Krishna, you too are trembling with me. Right? You too are trembling with me. Thank you for pointing that out. That's a very nice addition to this theme of anukampa. Thank you. Okay.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. I really liked how you shared the story when you were a child looking at the picture of Prahlad Maharaj falling. Although I had a question that you were mentioning, and I think it sounds very beautiful that at the end when Krishna kind of like catches you, you feel like, oh, yes. But then I think that in my past, I've seen people who actually, even though the Lord caught them, they didn't see that. And they got very devastated, and they have like very open anger towards religion and God. And so, I guess my question is that how to like have this fall, how to take this fall gloriously, and then see that the Lord caught you, and not fall into the trap where you feel like, you know, it happened what happened, and I'm totally by myself in it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very thoughtful question. It's very natural for us to feel some anger towards Krishna when things happen like that, right? Devastating things happen. We should not feel, for ourselves, we should not feel any sense of guilt for feeling those anger feelings. And if we see someone else going through them, then it's good to encourage them to lean into those feelings. By that I mean that even when we approach Krishna in anger, it is good, because we're treating him as a person and relating to him. The worst thing is that we dismiss Krishna, we ignore him, and we become indifferent to him. That's what we don't want. But anger towards Krishna, I have seen persons go through this very closely, right? And there is hope in that journey. There's growth in that journey. And that growth comes from the fact that they felt that anger towards God. Right? Because even as we feel angry towards God, we are feeling an emotion towards Him. And we know from Srimad Bhagavatam that in any form we approach Krishna, whether it's in anger, or even in hatred, or in lust, or in any form, it is only beneficial for us, right? So this is part of the story of a devotee's life. And there are times, sometimes big and sometimes small, where we will feel that sense of anger towards Krishna. But even there, the best thing is still to stand before Him and express it. Just like we talked about in the process of prayer, right? We go to Krishna honestly and we say, this is where I'm at. This is who I am. So we need to tell Krishna that. And if we're helping someone, then that's the best thing we can do, is to encourage them to express their feelings towards Krishna, rather than asking them not to feel that, or asking them to avoid it, or asking them to get over it. Those things rarely work, because their suffering is real, right? And they need to be able to work through it, to sit with it, right? So helping them to express that, to maybe to write a letter to the Lord, right? And to read it to Him is actually very difficult to do when you've gone through something intense. And everything you feel towards the Lord, to put it out there and to say, I don't know where you were. I don't like the way you acted, right? It's still recognizing Krishna as a person. And He can handle it, right? He can take it from us. And He'd much prefer that than for us to stop picking up the phone, right? That is the most dangerous thing. But if we can express ourselves, Krishna appreciates it very much. And eventually, that anger will start to subside and a normalcy in the relationship will return. Perhaps a deeper relationship will return. Yes.
Thank you for a wonderful session. It was really amazing. I have one question and one reflection. One was, the reflection was like our personal Bhagavatam, we can see how Krishna acts in our life. I was thinking of the verse, Janma Karma Chame Divyam. Like, we are seeing Krishna's activities which are transcendental in our own lives, and we can transcend and go back to Him. And then, it's like, a question is, you were saying that, Krishna catches you at the, from the cliff, He catches Prahlad below. So, and then your faith increases from 10 years, 5 years to 2.5 years, that Krishna will certainly protect and will. Prahlad Maharaj was at the point where he was not even asking, he was always like, yeah, Krishna look at him. He was very confident. So is there, like, do we have to fall again and again from the cliff, or is there a fast?
This is a really nice question, thank you, very genuine. If I'm being honest, I have to say that when I pray to Krishna, I always pray like this. Krishna, please, I really want to become your devotee and serve you nicely. Just do it gently, please. Because I know my capacity to deal with many cliff pushes is not that great, So that fear is always there, for me at least. It's always there, that Krishna will maybe put me through something a little too intense, right? But I think we should be, I think we should take heart in the fact that Krishna will challenge us, but He never wants to destroy us, right? He doesn't want to break our back. Because if we cannot get up, then what is the use of that, right? So we have to, it's good for us to recognize that Krishna's job is to protect. Maya Devi, this world is set up to give us trouble. Krishna never wants to put his devotee through trouble, right? Like, Krishna's never the one who pushes us off the cliff. I think sometimes it can feel like that because we depend so much on Krishna and we think of him so often. It can feel like he did this to us. But we have to remember that Krishna is not the one who pushes Prahlad off. Right? That's this material world that does it. It's full of cliffs. Krishna is the one who catches. Right? And so sometimes he will take time and sometimes it will be challenging and difficult. But he'll never push it. He does not want to push it to a point where we cannot get up after that. But it's okay, I think, if we want to pray to Krishna to be a little gentle with us. The material world will bring us plenty of trouble anyway. There is no use in asking for more of it. Right? It's just the nature of this world. But I especially like the first point that you made, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, Evam Yo Veti Tattvataha. Krishna says, one who knows the nature of my appearance and activities does not return to this material world again, but comes to me. And isn't this really the challenge that we face in our life, right? Is that understanding the nature of Krishna's activities in our own life? If only we understood that and we came to terms with that, then our material existence is finished. It's done. Then we go back to Godhead, right? That's the whole journey of our life, is trying to understand karma divyam, Krishna's divine actions, not just in the pages of Bhagavatam, but also in the pages of our own life. Right? And saying, yes, this was also divya, what Krishna did in my life. And if we can get that, then what's the trouble? Like Prabhupada says, right? What's the difficulty? His famous line to Shrutakirti Prabhu, what's the difficulty? And Shrutakirti Prabhu loved that line so much, he made the title of his book, What is the Difficulty? Why? Because for someone who can see Krishna acting in his life, what is the difficulty? Right? Where's the difficulty? Because they've seen Janma Karma Chame Divyam. Not just in Bhagavatam, but in their own life. Right? Then there's no difficulty. So thank you for that point. Very nice point. Okay. So here, and there's one on Zoom also. So, okay, Prabhu in the back, and then, actually in the back, and then Zoom, and then Harshit.
Should I go first?
Yes, please. You go first.
Great stories, Prabhu. Especially the story of devotees who got cancer, and one devotee went into remission, and another devotee, and come back from remission. And this is great topics. And the second comment is regarding anger. I'm a perfectionist and I get angry very easily, and even with Krishna, I became very angry a couple of times. I went through some very intense tragedies, and then I asked Krishna, why I've been praying for you for so long. You didn't come and rescue me when I was in this kind of tragedy. Are you really there? So I think anger, most of the times people or devotees also go through these emotions. And this is the first time I'm officially hearing that you can be angry with Krishna. No, I was always thinking, no, when I go to the temple, when I go in front of Krishna, I cannot be angry. It's offense. Thank you for clearing that. It's not an offense, that it is an emotion. Thank you for clearing that. And my question is, apart from those two comments, my question is, we know that Krishna is there to protect us, and Krishna will ultimately, take us back to his abode. And knowing all that, is it a good prayer if you pray to Krishna, please give your darshan in our private prayers? Is that a good prayer or is that a bad prayer?
Asking Krishna for his darshan is perhaps the most fundamental prayer of a devotee. right? That Krishna, please show yourself to me. It's there in the Ishopanishad as well. What is it? Satyasyape tam mukham. He says, Hiranmayena patrena, satyasyape tam mukham. He says, my dear Lord, please show me your face. Take away this effulgence, this brilliance, which is covering your face, and show me yourself. So this is the most fundamental prayer of a devotee. Please show me yourself. This is what the gopis are praying in Vrindavan. This is what the devotee is praying in Ishopanishad. This is what every devotee is praying. Arjuna is praying, Krishna, please show yourself to me. Right? In 10th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, 11th chapter, he asks Krishna, I want to see you. So, every devotee is asking Krishna, I want to see you. That prayer is so important, actually. It's a matter of how we ask for that. What is it? What mood are we asking in? Sometimes people they're asking Krishna for darshan out of frustration, out of exhaustion. Some are asking out of separation. Some are asking out of great love. Right? The gopis are asking in one way. Arjuna is asking in another way. Someone who's frustrated, had it enough with life, they're asking in another way. Right? So, yes, we should ask Krishna for darshan. But the question is why? Why do we want his darshan? What is the mood behind it? Is it that we're asking for darshan because we've had it with this world and we want an escape? Okay, yes, that's nice. But better we ask Krishna for darshan for his service. Right? Krishna, please give me the opportunity to serve you. That is why we want to ask for his darshan. Right? So, yes, we want to ask for Krishna's darshan, but we want to purify the mood behind it. Why we want that darshan from the Lord. Is that okay? Krishna, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, right? That rather than, don't ask to see God, but act in such a way that God wants to see you. Right? And that's our goal, right? That's how we ask for darshan. We behave in such a way that Krishna has no choice but to come see us. Right? And hopefully, it's not like Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu acted in such a way Krishna had no choice but to come see him. But we want to do it anukulyena. We want to do it in a favorable way. Okay, online, there's a question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Oh, Hare
with
Krishna.
accept humble obeisances on grace to Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept my
Thank you so much Prabhuji for such nice seminar. It is amazing in the morning. And I have a question that I always come across with questions from teenagers whom I teach Bhagavatam. That why we should have faith only on Krishna or only on Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, and I try to give them the example of Srila Prabhupada, how we should have a faith on the pilot before sitting on the plane, or it is on the disciplic successor, it is why it is authentic and all that, why not Bible or Quran. So how to really make, like they understand, like they get convinced, but again they ask the same question, why I should have only be committed to Krishna consciousness and nothing else. So how should we really convince this modern youth to have faith on Krishna and our scriptures?
Nice. Thank you for that question. I can share my experience in this regard. For me, having faith in Krishna means having faith in Quran, Bible, in any shape or form that Krishna manifests himself in this world. It's not an either-or proposition. Krishna appears in this world in so many different ways. And if someone wants to have faith in these other scriptures, let them investigate, let them explore. All I can do is share what is it about Krishna that I find to be the most attractive. Why is it that Krishna is particularly attractive and worth having faith in for me? And when I think through that, and I think that's what I would encourage you to do with the youth that you work with, is to ask this question of them. Ask them, why is it that they have any faith in God? Or what is their experience of Krishna? And when you ask that question, you find that there's many amazing answers that come, right? Where they too have experienced Krishna's presence in some way. Because you see, faith is, we often speak about it as if it's a leap, like it's the leap of faith. It's some magical thing that we get. But there's two things about faith that we should remember. One is that faith is gradual. It's progressive, let's put it that way. Faith is progressive. And second, that it is composite. Okay, let me explain what I mean. Gradual means it takes time. It's not an on-off switch. Do you have faith? Well, I guess, kind of, a little bit, something. If someone asked me, do I have faith in Krishna? I would say, yes, but no. Like, there are some aspects of my life where I act in such a way that I don't have faith, right? I rely so much on everyone but Krishna. And because of that, I'm struggling in my material life. I'm working so hard. I'm trying to do so many things as an insurance plan because I don't have faith for Krishna, right? So do I have faith? Yes, but no. Much more to be gained, right? It's a gradual process. It's a progressive journey. The second thing is faith is composite. It's built on emotion, experience, right? Experience. We experience something in the association of devotees. We experience something in kirtan. We experience something in our sadhu sangha. We experience something in our japa. Our faith is built on feeling Krishna's presence. But then there's also intellectual faith. We come to know we have faith because it makes sense. Krishna consciousness makes sense. Bhagavatam makes sense. The experience of other devotees makes sense. We have faith because of community. I am frankly practicing Krishna consciousness only because I have the association of devotees. Otherwise, I would have lost my way so many times. Sometimes, because I see the example of others, I become convinced. Sometimes, I get corrected by others, I feel convinced. Sometimes, it's just peer pressure. Right? Everyone's waking up for Mangalarti, so I should do it also. Right? Even though I'm not feeling something. Right? But out of peer pressure, I'm doing it. So, there's many pillars, at least these three. Right? Experiential, communal, and intellectual. And throughout our life's journey of faith, there will be times when one or more of these legs will shake. There are times when you may, after being devotee for many years, things are not making sense. You're reading Bhagavatam, and this is too far out. This is not making sense to me. Right? It's too much to digest. Okay, it's okay. We sit with that wobbling leg. But I've got the other two to hold me up. I have the association of devotees. I have my experience of Krishna. No one can deny that. Other times, the experience may be weak. Right? After so many years of chanting, I'm not feeling it anymore in my japa. And somehow it's not there, the ecstasy I used to feel. It's okay. I'm willing to sit with it. I'm willing to be patient. But intellectually it makes sense to me. Krishna consciousness makes so much sense. The devotee community is good. Other times, maybe the communal side is wobbling. I've had a bad experience, maybe some trouble, some interpersonal conflict with other devotees, and I'm really struggling. But I have my personal experience. I have my intellectual understanding. Right? So faith is composite. It's got multiple pieces. And we have to make sure that our faith is not just standing on one leg. Because if it's standing on one leg, it'll fall over at some point or another. In fact, whatever leg we are very strong with, we have to make concerted effort to nourish the other ones, right? If intellectual understanding is your natural thing, then you have to lean into the experiential. If the community thing is like your thing, right? I just want to be with devotees and do seva, that's it. I don't have much interest in reading, in studying. Then we have to put extra effort there. So I think, like my own experience working with youth, is to ask them this question. What does your faith rest upon? Why is it that you feel any connection to Krishna? Or why not? And then when it comes out, then we ask them, we say, okay, look at your faith. What is it made of, right? What is it a composite of? And that faith will gradually grow. If we nourish each of those legs, we'll see it grow in our youth, right? It'll develop. The times when they experience, the times when they're in the association of other youth and other devotees, and the times when they're studying Shastra nicely, it'll help that faith grow over time. But that faith is never exclusive of others, right? We have faith in Krishna not in spite of other religions, but because of other religions. Because we see that our same Krishna manifests in these wonderful ways just according to the needs of every population and every society and every culture. This is a famous quote by Bhaktivinoda Thakur where he says this. He says, "My love for Krishna grows when I see that my Lord so wonderfully appears in a different way, in a different mood, in this person's tradition, in this person's religion, in this person's church." Right? So we appreciate what everyone else, how they're experiencing Krishna, and then we ask ourselves, why am I attached to Krishna? And if we genuinely cannot find an answer to that question, then maybe we should be in another religion, right? Where we can find something more attractive about Krishna. But truly, it's not difficult to find, right? Especially when we're speaking to others, to youth, we share our own experience. This is why I feel attracted to Krishna. This is why I have faith in Krishna. This is what Krishna means to me. Tell me, please, what he means to you. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. They say that, because our parents are forcing us, that's why we are doing it. So right now it is there, but still they understood. I told them, see, whatever knowledge you are getting here, are you getting anywhere else? They said no. Like I just gave a simple example of time. Like what time is spoken by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. So details about time. And you understand how time is so important for us. Even 1 second of time we cannot buy with billions of dollars. Where are you getting that? Nowhere else. And you've experienced that. You know it very well. Then they were a little bit convinced, yes, So I think what you said, the progressive and composite, that would help me now, to get it better and better. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Especially at the teenage years, the intellectual side is extremely important. Their intelligence is expanding and becoming very strong. And unless Krishna consciousness satisfies the intelligence, they cannot hold on to it. The experiential is sufficient at younger ages. Everyone's a devotee in the social, communal. Everyone's a devotee, I'm going to be a devotee, it's lots of fun. But as children grow older, then the intellectual is crucial. And if that's not there, then they become very weak in their faith. So, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for the lecture. I really liked, I think it came across in some of the questions and the responses you gave also, about the access that we have to Krishna in our prayer, in how Krishna reciprocates with us, is our way of building that relationship with him, of getting access to him, of understanding how he, based on how he responds, we learn more about him. So this direct access that we get to Krishna through prayer, I'm also wondering if there are barriers where you cannot get direct access to Krishna. Is it that everyone has direct access, and potentially the answer is yes, but
are there certain access barriers? Like where does, for example, I was thinking, where does the guru fit in?
Yes, very good question, thank you. By the way, there's a few devotees visiting from Utah who came with me, or almost with me. This is, so we have Harshika and Vivek. They're students at Utah State University, the university I teach at. And then there's Kapil Sharma and Ishan is there in the back, father and son. And they are pillars of the Salt Lake City temple, do a lot of service, wonderful work. And Ishan is studying in college at University of Utah, right? Yeah, so barriers to access, very good question. First of all, the answer is everyone has access to Krishna. He's right there in the heart, right? Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishto. And yet, right, even though we all have access to Krishna, the reality is that not all of us can access Krishna within the heart. And the barriers to that are as a result of our own clouded mind and intelligence. Because the mind is not clear, that is, it is full of anarthas, or these material desires that we have, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, lust, anger, greed, envy, all these qualities are there. They become like dust on the mirror of the heart, cheto darpana marjanam. So they cloud our ability to see ourselves, not to mention seeing Krishna, by covering with these anarthas. And so until those relationships, until the mind is purified and the heart is purified, that direct connection, that direct access to Krishna can be a little bit clouded, and it becomes more difficult to hear Krishna's voice. This is described in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita. That when we become jitatmana, as in we have controlled our senses, we have conquered ourselves, prashantasya, we become peaceful, that is, the material desires have calmed down, then paramatma samahita, we can connect with the paramatma, with the super soul. But until that point, that connection is like a weak signal. Sometimes it connects, sometimes it doesn't. So the role of the spiritual master, the role of the other devotees with whom we are getting guidance and we are serving with whom, their role is one of clarifying that signal, right? They help to serve Prabhupada says as a transparent via media. In other words, they purify the conduit. They are a much more, they conduct electricity much more clearly than we do, right? So because the spiritual master is such a good conductor of mercy, when we connect with him, we can feel that mercy ourselves, despite the fact that we are not very good conductors ourselves, right? So we try to connect to Krishna, and that connection is really weak, right? We conduct some, but not much. But we connect to him, or we connect to other devotees, then we can hear that signal more clearly. So this is where the point is about prayers being answered through Krishna's voice, and Krishna's voice being heard through multiple channels. And that channel is not always the direct channel within the heart. Sometimes it's external channels. Usually it is those external channels that we go through. And as we practice bhakti, part of the process of going to Krishna and experiencing everything we talked about is that the heart becomes purified. And we're able to then hear Krishna's wish much more clearly and effectively. Hare Krishna. So I see 1, 2, 3 hands still. Tell us, one here, 4. What should we do? How much time?
I think we are almost done, but maybe 5 minutes.
Okay, let's take another 5 minutes. Let's see, what were the hands? Okay, so maybe yourself, and then back there, and then on Zoom.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So you mentioned that our goal is to transform the anger, disappointment, frustration into gratitude. And you gave a couple of really nice examples of how we can change the narrative from I'm a victim to this is Krishna's mercy, and there was another one. what are some practical steps that you would recommend of bridging that gap? Because it feels like after you've been through one pushing off the cliff incident and then Krishna's caught you, but you're still sort of traumatized by it, like fearful that I don't want to go near a cliff ever again. Like Krishna's merciful, but I hope that never happens to me again. So could you please?
Yeah. How can we take practical steps to help us come to that point of gratitude? So one of the best ways I find is through regular study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Because it's always easier to see Krishna's mercy in someone else's experience rather than our own. Because when Krishna acts in our life, it's just a little too close. And it can burn a little too much, right? As you described. And we need some distance. To see things, we need some distance, usually, right? Just like if I tried to read this, I can't. It's too close, right? But I put it out here, and now I can read. So sometimes we need that distance. And if we're not able to find that distance in our own life, right? Like you're describing a scenario where that distance has not yet happened because it's still frightening, it's still burning, then we need to find it in other people's experience. And the best way to know that we're getting an authentic experience that's not colored with all kinds of other things is through the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? That we really, Bhagavatam provides every type of scenario we can imagine. Every type of devotee is there, from the most elementary to the most advanced, and every type of challenge is there, difficulty, physical, mental, spiritual, it's all there, right? So you read Bhagavatam, you'll find amazing things that speak exactly to your situation. And the second thing is that we find it in Krishna's names, Krishna's holy names, right? And that's an aspect that we have not talked about at all. I've mentioned once. That's for tomorrow. So, okay. Hare Krishna. In the back.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for this lecture. I especially enjoyed the point that you ended with about it being a matter of perspective. And I had a question about when you're falling off the cliff, how do you make the best use of that time?
How do you make the best use of time? Why, if I can just ask, why are you concerned about time here? What is the challenge you're thinking of?
I don't know if it's a matter of the time specifically, but when you're falling off the cliff and you're going through that moment of, is Krishna going to catch me? Is he not? How can we make sure that we maintain our faith? I remember once hearing my Guru Ma say, how do you know you have firm faith unless it's tested? So in those moments when it's being tested, how can we support our sadhana? How can we support ourselves in remaining steady?
Yeah. The best answer I can think of at the moment, there's probably many, because it's a very deep question. The best I can think of is being tightly packed up in the association of devotees. Because when we are there, we are constantly reminded of Krishna's presence in our life. Perhaps the only intractable situation for a devotee is the absence of association. Krishna's absence, we have been speaking of as actually an opportunity for a devotee to cultivate love in separation, right? But the absence of devotees is not an opportunity of any kind. It's only a loss, and it needs to be remedied right away. You find that when devotees feel that sense of separation from Krishna or that loss, right, the journey down the cliff, what they take shelter of is each other's association. When the gopis lose Krishna in the rasa dance, where do they find solace? Amongst each other, right? That separation from Krishna brings the gopis together more than when Krishna was present. Devotees band together. They hold on to each other tighter when Krishna's absence is felt. And this is one of the gifts of love and separation, that we find that devotees take shelter of each other a lot. When Arjun loses Krishna at the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? That's when the Pandavas have to take solace in each other's association to feel Krishna's presence again. So the journey down the cliff is only made bearable because we're all heading down the cliff together, right? This is the material world. We're all in the same boat or in the same cliff, right? And so when we hold each other tightly and we share in each other's experience and we take shelter of the association of devotees, that allows us to see Krishna's presence there. As Ramananda Rai says to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there is no loss in this world that is intolerable except the loss of the association of a devotee, right? He says no loss. So that really is the only intractable problem for a devotee. Everything else can be remedied by Krishna's mercy. Hare Krishna. Okay. I think, yes, on Zoom. Okay. This is the final question. The ultimate question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for the beautiful lecture. I went through so many phases of my life when you were explaining things, and thank you so much for sharing the experiences of the devotees. It helps to keep the faith up. My question is about something I struggle with personally, is whenever we are going through some materialistic problems, and you usually go to Krishna and ask for help. But whenever I go, I feel like, no, I should be asking for his love and bhakti. I feel selfish if I'm asking for materialistic gains. I feel very guilty, and I'm not able to do it. Like, hey, Krishna, help me with this job. I'm going through so much. I'm not able to do it because I'm like, no, I should be asking for his love. Why should I ask for this materialistic gains? So how should I ask for help? And how can I justify that in my mind that I'm asking for this materialistic thing, and at the same time I have to justify that in my heart?
Yes, thank you. When Prahlad Maharaj, at the end of the whole story, Nrsingadev asks Prahlad Maharaj to ask him a benediction. Say, please ask something from me. And Prahlad Maharaj's response is, how could you do that? Is this what you think our relationship was about? That I was going to ask you something at the end? This is why I did everything? No, our relationship is just one of love. I don't want anything from you. And Nrsingadev says, no, that's not what I meant. I want to give you something out of love. Right? I'm not saying you're doing business with me. How is it that we express love? That is the question, right? Dadati pratigrihnati guhyam akhyati pritchati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva shadgudam priti lakshanam shadvidam. So this is 6 symptoms of love, priti lakshanam. The first one is dadati, by giving. So when a devotee approaches Krishna, when you approach Krishna, and Krishna gives, this is a sign of Krishna's love for you. It is not a replacement, a breakage in that relationship of love. Yes, if you were going for business, it would be different, right? If you went to Krishna and said, Krishna, yesterday I put this much money in your hundi, now I expect this. But that's not what you're doing, right? What you're expressing is a challenge, a difficulty, and you're going to him for help. That is what people do when they love each other. Think of someone in your life whom you love. Suppose they went through something very difficult, right? Suppose they're not living with you, they're at a distance, and they went through a surgery or some medical problem, and they didn't tell you. They didn't reach out for your help. How would that make you feel? Horrible, right? You would say, is this like, don't we have a relationship? I love you. Don't you love me? Why wouldn't you come to me in your time of difficulty? Not only do you not mind it, but you expect it, right? As a symptom of love in your relationship. You would expect it from a child, from a partner, from a parent. You would expect that they come to you. So too Krishna. Krishna expects it from his devotees. It is not only your right to go to Krishna, but it is your duty to go to Krishna. Because he does so much for you. Should you not tell him when you need something or when you are in some trouble? Krishna loves that. Just as when a small child comes to us as a parent and says, I need this, I want this. It gives us joy, even if we have to say no to it, right? It makes us happy that, especially like if a little child comes to the mother and says, Mommy, I want to eat this today. The mother's so flattered. Like, you like this, huh? I can't make it today, I'm too busy. But next week I'll make it for you, right? So the answer may be temporarily no, but there's nothing that touches a parent as much as a child asking for something that they need, right? We just need to make sure that we ask it in the mood of that child, that we're not asking it in the mood of some sort of business with Krishna. That's all. And if we are asking as a child, then there's no reason for guilt. It is our duty. It is our duty to ask and Krishna's duty to give. And that is an expectation in love. And when Krishna asks us something, then it is also our duty to give, right? It goes both ways as a form of love. I think this is a very nice point upon which to end. Thank you all so much again for your attention today. Hare Krishna. Sorry we went 10-15 minutes over time. I just wanted to remind you, tomorrow's seminar, what time does it start, Guru? 9 o'clock. So 9 to 11, it's a 2-hour session, including Q&A, particularly on one aspect of prayer, maybe the most important aspect of prayer, which is to call upon Krishna's holy names. And we will pay special attention in terms of what is Krishna's names, why are they so powerful, and how we can call upon them with meaning. Okay? Hari Bol. See you tomorrow.